I need you to be ultra professional right now. I've spent years playing Souls games. Dark Souls 1, 2, 3, Bloodborne, Elden Ring, Lies of P. I know the feeling of dying 40 times to the same boss and thinking it's perfectly normal, but there is a massive difference between a boss that is fair hard, and a boss created specifically to strip away your sanity. In this video, I'm going to show you the 10 bosses that represent the absolute peak of difficulty in the entire franchise. Not necessarily the most famous ones, but the ones that truly test the limits of what a player can endure. The challenge. The problem with discussing difficulty in Souls is that everyone's experience is different. A boss that destroyed you might have been easy for someone else. However, there is a pattern. Certain bosses appear in everyone's conversations, forums, videos, and communities, and they always appear with the same energy, rage mixed with respect. These are the ones I've selected, the ones the entire community recognizes as something beyond the norm. The top 10. Number 10, Nameless King, Dark Souls 3. Let's start with a classic. The Nameless King is the most famous optional boss in Dark Souls 3, and he still catches experienced players off guard. The first phase, where you fight the dragon he rides, is irritating because the camera becomes your primary enemy. You lose half your focus just trying to find the creature's head. But when the second phase begins, when you are finally face to face with him, that's when the game shows you what real difficulty means. His attacks are fast, he pursues you relentlessly, and his hitboxes possess a cruel honesty. They hit you exactly when they should. No excuses. For many, he was the first boss that force them to stop the game and go outside just to breathe. That's why he opens this list. Number 9, Watchdog of the Old Lords, Bloodborne, Chalice Dungeons / the Old Hunters context. Bloodborne is naturally faster and more aggressive than Dark Souls, but the Watchdog of the Old Lords takes everything difficult about Bloodborne and cranks it up. He is massive, moves far too fast for his size, and has a fire attack that covers enough area to kill you even when you think you're safe. What truly tests people's patience is the phase where the floor is covered in lava. You have to manage environmental damage while simultaneously surviving his onslaught. It's a combination of constant pressure that breaks players who thought they were ready. If you reach the Watchdog, you've seen a lot, but he is there to remind you that you haven't seen it all. Number 8, Radon, Elden Ring, post-nerf version. Yes, I'm talking about Radon even after the nerf. Even after FromSoftware adjusted him, he remains a fight that demands much more than most people expect. The giant arena, the NPC allies you can summon, the sense of scale, it all creates an epic atmosphere. But when you stop being impressed by the visuals and start paying attention to his attacks, you understand the problem. His projectile arcs in the first phase come from angles that are difficult to read. The second phase, when he crashes from the sky like a meteor, resets everything with even more intensity. For players not used to managing a fight in such an open space while dodging arrows from different directions, Radon is a wall, a very well constructed wall. Number 7, Millennia, Blade of Miquella, Elden Ring. You can't have this list without her. Millennia has become a symbol. When anyone mentions hard Souls bosses, her name appears within 3 seconds. There is a very concrete reason for this. She heals every time she hits you. It doesn't matter if you have a shield, it doesn't matter if you have high poise, it doesn't matter if you have 60 vigor, she will heal. This changes the entire psychology of the fight. You can't just survive. You have to be aggressive enough to kill her before the healing becomes insurmountable. The second phase, where she becomes a giant flower of rot, adds the Scarlet Aeonia, an attack that kills players who barely survived the first phase. She is difficult in a way that goes beyond mechanics. She tests how much repetition you can take before you are forced to change your entire approach. Number 6, Orphan of Kos, Bloodborne, the Old Hunters. For many, the Orphan of Kos is the hardest boss in Bloodborne. For a significant portion of the community, he is the hardest boss in any Souls game, period. The fight begins with him emerging from the corpse of a massive being on the beach, and in that scene, you realize the game isn't playing around. He is unpredictable in a way that differs from other bosses. His attack patterns have timings that don't follow the rhythm you've spent the rest of the game learning. He changes behavior mid-combo. He literally uses a placenta as a weapon. The second phase adds projectiles that cover the screen, requiring you to learn exactly when to dodge. The Orphan is the type of boss that makes veteran Bloodborne players feel like they are learning the game from scratch all over again. Number 5. Promised Consort Radon, Elden Ring, Shadow of the Erd Tree. When the Shadow of the Erd Tree DLC was released, the entire community was blindsided, not by the level design or the lore, but by the final boss. Promised Consort Radon is a version of the Radon you knew, but combined with Miquella, and this combination created the most discussed boss in Elden Ring since millennia. His second phase adds light attacks with extremely precise tracking, a sword combo with a window of punishment that is far too small, and a special attack that clears the screen if you don't know exactly where to stand. The community was divided. Half thought he was the best boss in the game, the other half thought he was unfair, but both sides agreed on one thing: he is brutally difficult. Number 4. Sister Frida, Dark Souls 3. Ashes of Ariandel. Frida has 3 phases. 3, and each one is a different boss entirely. In the first phase, she uses invisibility, and you must learn to read where she will reappear. In the second phase, her father joins in, and it turns into a completely different, slower, heavier fight, with Frida striking while you try to deal with him. The third phase is Frida alone again, but faster, more aggressive, with attacks that cover more ground and a nearly non-existent punishment window. What makes Frida special in the difficulty conversation is that she isn't hard because she's unfair. She's hard because each phase requires a different mindset. You need to know when to pressure, when to retreat, and when to wait, switching between these modes 3 times without stopping. She is a test of consistency that few bosses can replicate. Number 3. Ishin the Sword Saint. Sekiro, Shadows Die. Twice. Sekiro is the only FromSoftware game that doesn't let you equip better armor, grind damage stats, or use summons. It's just you and the parry system. Ishin, the Sword Saint, is the final boss, and he represents everything the game taught you all at once. He has 4 phases. The first is like the Genichiro fight you did before, acting as a warm-up for what's to come. When Ishin truly appears, he uses a spear, a katana, and even a gun. The later phases add lightning attacks that strike from above, requiring exact timing to redirect. The final phase is the most aggressive. He utilizes sword combos that leave even experienced players mashing the parry button in desperation. Ishin is considered by many to be FromSoftware's best boss, not just for the difficulty, but for the sheer satisfaction when you finally click with his rhythm. Number 2. Laxasia the Complete. Lies of P. Lies of P was released in 2023 and immediately entered the conversation regarding the hardest Souls-like games. The boss everyone mentions is Laxasia the Complete. She is the Archabbess of Krat, and when you find her, you understand why the game saved her for the endgame. The first phase is already intense. She uses lightning attacks that are fast and cover enough ground to punish any attempt at being too greedy. The second phase is when things get serious. She sheds her armor and uses electricity much more aggressively, with attacks that track you and change direction mid-air. What places her so high on this list is the combination of speed, reach, and raw damage. You don't have much room for error, and when you do slip up, she doesn't hesitate. Number 1. Slave Knight Guile, Dark Souls 3, The Ringed City. There is a reason Gale appears at the top of best bosses and hardest bosses lists simultaneously. He is the perfect combination of both. The fight with him is the end of the line, the end of Dark Souls. FromSoftware knew this, so they created a boss that demands everything you've learned. He is fast like a Bloodborne boss, aggressive like a Dark Souls 3 boss, and as merciless as a final encounter should be. The second phase adds a cape that he uses to create additional damage areas during his swings. The third phase adds blood projectiles, even more speed, and even smaller windows for you to react. What makes Gale special is that he isn't difficult because he's frustrating, he is difficult because he is expertly designed. Every attack has a right answer. Every phase has a rhythm you must master. When you finally defeat him, the feeling isn't just relief, it's respect. You finally understood what the game was trying to teach you all along. Conclusion. These 10 bosses represent the peak of difficulty in Souls games. Not because they were poorly designed, but because they were made to test those who truly want to learn. Each of them has a moment where everything clicks, where you stop fighting against the boss and start fighting alongside the rhythm they created. When that moment arrives, the difficulty makes sense. Not every boss can achieve that. These 10 can.